Billy Napier has been fired as the head coach at Florida, which is yet another high-profile gig that has opened up in this wild and raucous early turn of the coaching carousel. Let's talk about who could replace Napier at Florida and how likely Florida is to get this thing turned around. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. You probably expected Billy Napier to get fired like he was on Sunday morning, but you probably expected it as soon as last year, just waiting on the buyout to get down. And after the performance they put in against Mississippi State, even after beating Texas, there was just nothing else for Texas or for Florida to do here. It is yet another coach who's been fired after a high-profile gig and hasn't done much to show that he is the coach of the future. So you've seen Penn State move on from James Franklin. You've seen Virginia Tech move on from Brent Pry, Deshaun Foster at UCLA. I mean, we keep going down the line on this one, guys. Like it's getting thick and nasty and mean out there to be a head coach. And none was on a hotter seat going into the season, we think, than Billy Napier, which is a guy that we would have already circled as a guy who could make that change and maybe keep his job. But with DJ Lagway not playing at a Heisman level, even as you're developing guys like Jaden Baugh and you're developing guys like Dallas Wilson, they decided we need a new kind of coach going into this new era of college football where you need to create even more revenue. Revenue sharing is online. Name, image, and likeness is online. We're fast seeing the transfer portal become even more competitive, and high school football recruiting is not waning, but it's not as important as it once was because it was once the most important thing you could do as a head coach. And that's just changed the calculus on the job. I even would love to see a guy like Nick Saban operate in this particular industry at this time. And there's a reason why he got up and left. He didn't want to. He didn't like where it was going. And I think there's a lot of coaches that feel the same way. And if you get bought out to leave, you get bought out to leave. So there's that. Billy Napier's not leaving empty-handed, and he'll probably be a coach somewhere else. Will he be a head coach? We'll see. But it wasn't as if Louisiana wasn't doing really well with Billy Napier as its head coach. But who could be some guys that we think could fit the bill at Missouri? And why are they all mostly SEC coaches, man? Like, I was thinking about this myself. There are a couple of coaches I think you could pry away from their situations presently and get them to come down and be the head coach there. But I don't think they're the guys that you're thinking about, right? So Lane Kiffin is at the top of the list, not just because Ole Miss has been good, basically since he arrived and became head coach, and they've been a fun offense to run. They've been a fun team to watch, and he has been a fun coach to hear and tweet, right? It's also because his buyout is just $3 million, which means it's really easy for Penn State, for Florida to make a run at him because that's chump change in this game when you're paying James Franklin $50 million to go away, who said he wants to coach again, right? And he wants to coach very soon. So it's not going to be the whole $49 million that they owe, but it's going to be a significant chunk they're paying out monthly until he gets a job. And I don't expect him to get a job until December, right? Although he could take one of these open jobs, but why would you want to take one of these open jobs in the middle of the season? It's also the reason why we're seeing more coaches get fired in the middle of the season. The 30-day transfer portal window that is open to all players after a coach gets fired or takes another job is the reason to fire a coach during the season. There is no place to go if you are a player, so you're captive there for 30 days. It's diabolical, but it also means that everybody's having to take this hurt. And as opposed to what Nick Saban did, which I think was the really didn't do any favors to Kalen DeBoer when he left it as soon as the season ended. And as Julian Sand was coming in, as Caleb Downs going into year 2, and left Kalen DeBoer to go sorting through the portal and trying to re-recruit guys that were already at Alabama to stay there. So in this way, your athletic director is trying to ensure that you have something like a football team intact when you get your next guy in there and make it more difficult for guys to enter the transfer portal. The game is the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game, right? Eli Drinkwitz also comes to mind here because he is familiar with what it takes to win in the SEC, and let's not kid ourselves, Florida is a better job than Missouri. Although Missouri has been on its way up and Eli Drinkwitz has done a really great job with them, they've not had the pedigree that Florida has, and Florida is one of the best universities in all of, well, the United States, even internationally. We're talking about just how far its reach is. Florida is also the flagship in the state of Florida, right? Like that's the one where everybody wants to go to school, and it's the one that can recruit for anyone. I know that Florida State and Miami feel some kind of way about this, but first, Miami is a private school and Florida State is not, but it's also Florida State. It's not Florida. I think that that's a great fit if you want to go the Eli Drinkwitz route, but I think he gets to be the kind of head coach that he is in large part because he's been good. But Eli Drinkwitz as a hire for me feels a lot like Dan Mullen, which is the guy they fired, right? And he went into TV for a little while, came back out and has a 6-1 UNLV. Go figure. I think that if you want to hire Dan Mullen back, then you hired Eli Drinkwitz. I think another way to look at this is perhaps a guy like Jeff Brom at Louisville. Although I think he's at home, I don't think he's going anywhere. Let's not kid ourselves that Penn State is a better job than Louisville and Florida is a better job than Louisville. But if you got Louisville right where you want them, there's no reason to leave. They're ecstatic about a number 2 win against Miami, and they'll probably pay the man handsomely to stay at Louisville if they put together a good season this year. I don't know that you want to move down to Florida where it's been really difficult to win there ever since Urban Meyer left and take on that challenge. I think you need to go a little bit further out into the field to get that done, right? As we're thinking about this, also, Brom's got a buyout of $1 million. I should also mention that Eli Drinkwitz's buyout is $5 million. Jed Fish comes to mind because he gets spent some time at Florida, but Jed Fish has spent some time almost everywhere. Though it is his alma mater, and I think he loves the program. I think given an opportunity, he would up and leave there too. Just like he up and left Arizona, he would up and leave Washington to get to Florida because it's a better job. And perhaps do the same sort of job that he's done at Washington, was just slowly build the program into one that can win by selling the NFL. At Florida, you ain't got to sell that. It's also feels very much like a Jim McElwain hire, right? Like it's not going to move the needle in the way that we'd want. And I don't think that anybody's going to feel affected by a Jed Fish hire. Affected meaning we're going to open up our purses there. But the buyout is also large. He's $12 million to buy him out. So you got to really want him. Brent Key, I think, would fit as a head coach at Florida. But again, it's a guy that would be leaving his alma mater. He went to Georgia Tech. He's a Georgia Tech guy. They're great in this year. And I think he's finally got this program humming in the direction that we wanted to go. And it would not be out of the question for him to get up and leave. I'm not saying that. But at a $4 million buyout, find out what it is that Brent Key would want to do. And maybe he wants to bring some and most of his staff down there and find another talisman like Haynes King to get it done. Fran Brown at Syracuse, another guy that feels like he would fit, comes from Georgia as a defensive back coach, but grew up a Syracuse fan watching those games and says that he's right where he wants to be. I think you're going to have to go a little bit farther outfield there. I really think that taking a look at a guy like Ryan Silverfield at Memphis just makes too much sense to me. You see what he's done in Memphis. You see how they play football. They run the ball. They're sound defensively, and he was the defensive coordinator at Memphis before he took over the job that Mike Norvell vacated. And they've been winning football games. Yeah, they got thumped by UAB in a game they shouldn't have been thumped by, but that's the guy that I would circle if I was Florida brass. I would find out what it takes to get Ryan Silverfield to Florida, and I would make that happen.